Everyone is doing wonderful. Wherever your reality is taking you today. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, my friends. Just take a few secs here for folks to join. But I do welcome as you settle into this space that you just fully arrive in the present. Grant yourself a few deep breaths. You certainly know how many times I benefit from just simply taking a pause and reconnecting, remembering where I am in this time and space. So the message coming through today is really inspired by our multidimensional guides and our own multidimensional beingness, and this transmission that wanted to be shared to really shine some light as to this kind of greater totality of who we are and how this has become such a really beautiful and valuable aspect of my offering here at the Kamali Temple and in my own life. So I wanted to share with you because I know that some of you are new, and if you're new to this space, welcome. My name is Kema. It's so nice to be here with you. And many of you have been asking about my offerings and about what are these crazy things that you're doing on Instagram Reels where you're moving your hands around and speaking in this language that I don't logically understand, but my heart and my body can feel. So I wanted to put this into words and share a bit with you about multidimensional channeling and multidimensional beings that are in existence. So I think the place to start is just to acknowledge that, here we are in this physical reality as a physical being. We know that. And I know many of you are also coming to experience yourself as far more than the physical. Far more than the physical. We are getting intuitive messages. We are feeling the energies of one another, feeling the energies of the collective. We are having our days filled with synchronicities and signs. We're having really, amazing dreams. We are tapping into the invisible aspects of our existence. And these invisible aspects are basically energy moving at a really high frequency. So we can't necessarily see it or physically experience it. However, just like we know through signs and synchronicities, they are able to translate into physical form. And really everything that's showing up in our physical form and in our physical reality has an origin that is first in energy. So this is how, manifestation occurs. We are aligning with a thought, and then we are aligning with an emotion and a frequency, and with our focus, with the proper embodiment, we are then the physical expression of that. And through that exchange, the physical representation that is of our highest then is able to come into our life, into a place that we can receive it. So when we're talking about multidimensionality, we're talking about the multitude of dimensional frequencies that exist and that exist within us and all around us. So within ourselves, we also have a multidimensional beingness. We have aspects of our soul that are existing in higher dimensional frequencies right now. And we all as well have higher dimensional guidance systems that are in existence right now just in a realm of existence or a dimensional existence that is of a lighter density. So what is really incredible in terms of my own journey, I have always, been fascinated with extraterrestrial beings, but I never associated them with spirituality until a few years ago. So I had my, my spiritual practice, I had my, my healing practice, as I still do. And in that work, I've always been working with energy intuitively, working with my client's energy body intuitively, and receiving messages from their guidance, from angels, etc. So I've always had the open door to the spirit world. And then it was, I started to come into the awareness that, wow, there are this whole wide, wide world, multiverse of these higher dimensional beings that one would typically refer to as extraterrestrial, but they're actually here as really potent and powerful guides for us as we navigate this human experience. So as, and this is what's so incredible and has been such a beautiful thing to witness in my own journey and on the journey of many of my clients, is that there is such a higher intelligence that is really supporting our path and our spiritual growth and expansion. So it's like this incremental build that I have been shown by my guides needed to occur so that I could be in a place to receive their frequency and to be able to receive their messages and the quality of their messages. It couldn't have happened any sooner, but it had happened in a most divine timing. And it was certainly, as my belief system expanded into the realms of multidimensionality, my interest was certainly there, but it was not something that I anticipated or sought out to actually be a multidimensional channel. And multidimensional channeling for me has come through in a few ways. One of them being light language. So light language was something that was, I've done, lives on this before, but again, I know that many of you are new. And so I want to give you the most kind of contextual way to grasp it and understand it, because I find it to be of the one of the most powerful healing experiences that is available to us in this life. And one that is not just, healing for our physical beingness, but one that phenomenally expands the limits and the bounds of the 3D and brings us into such a greater understanding of who we really are and what we're capable of in this life. So the light language opened up like very, very synchronistically. It opened up over the course of me posing the question, what is this? It coming into my field. I did not logically comprehend it when it did. I tried to. I thought like, oh, maybe this is a word that, or a concept that is used that, channels use to describe their ability to communicate with spirit. And then within 2 days, I came into contact with this woman, Jamie, who then became one of my teachers, who is a light language channel. And so I asked the question, didn't have the understanding. She was revealed to me. And then within the next week, light language started coming through. And my mind absolutely even then could not comprehend it. And even from that point when it started coming in, my guides have now shown me how that was even a very, very purposeful build. It was shown to me in such a way so that, again, I could have the capacity to hold it and to be the most kind of grounded and integrated channel that I can be. So the light language is basically, it's been described to me in a few different ways. One is a multiverse translator. I've actually been shown how in the greater multiverse, there are a variety of different multidimensional beings and races and realms of existence, far beyond, what, again, we can like logically comprehend. But I have not only experienced my own higher dimensional selves in their realities, and they're all existing in many different kinds of realms and hold many different kinds of roles. And this is also what I have experienced with the sessions that I've done, that I know some of you have experienced. So because not everyone in the multiverse as well speaks the same language, light language has become a multiverse translator. So it's a way that beings of different races can also communicate with one another. Primarily, it's done telepathically, but it is through the transference of light that there is a mutual understanding that is able to occur. Now, on our front, the higher dimensionals are here to support our human experience. Now, just a little side note that this is also that many of our higher dimensional selves and guides are actually, in our understanding of time and space, existing in the future. And so we are all, in essence, connected and influencing one another, which is part of why they are here to support us on our journey. Because again, it's all interconnected and all part of the whole. So the beautiful thing as well is that from where their perspective, their higher dimensional perspective, means that they are outside of these bounds of time and space and outside of the programming and the conditioning that is embedded in the framework of planet Earth. We are all, I know that so many of you are feeling this. We are being activated with so many codes of this knowing and this awareness like never before. And we are like constantly being activated with the knowing that we are so much more than what we can see and perceive here, physically and materially. And, this is why, crystals were this huge activator for me and for so many of my clients, because it was this physical object that we can't keep our hands off of, can't keep our eyes off of, that is this portal to this greater understanding. It creates this bridge for our humanness, our 3D beingness with the higher dimensional realms. And so these higher dimensional realms that, yes, that exist with the angelics, with the elementals, and what has been coming through the most for me has been the galactics. So with the galactics, they are, some of them, depending on the dimensional frequency within which they exist, where they are in their own evolution, they can be of physical form. Not what we would necessarily perceive as physical form, although some are. Many of them are at a higher, you could say their density is lighter. You can think of dimension as also density. It is a higher dimension, but of a density that is much lighter than our physical form. So depending on where they are, they might actually have a physical form. They might be at a stage in their ascension where they are in between physicality and non-physicality. And some of the guides that I work with are not of a physical form. And this has been something that for our ego can be interesting to navigate, because we want to know who they are and where they are from. And this is what, as I observe the other channels that are out there, I find it very fascinating that some just stick to one race. because for me, the way that my guides work with me, it's like it's always just being open to what is in the highest of the client that I am working with. It is not just I tap into Pleiadian guides. But here's also what they've expressed to me. And so a few things. One is that they have such a higher intelligence, and your higher self has such a higher intelligence, that the way that the communication is coming through for you is always going to come through the portal or the being or the race or whatever it may be that is one that you can receive at that time. So just because, let's just say it actually might be that it is not only a guide, but the way that they communicate is not always just from one being. It is actually a group of beings that are communicating as a whole. So, you know, in our mind, we're like, well, I want to know their name. And I've had a really funny exchange, and I've shared this with some of you. I'll touch upon it in a minute. With some of my guides that are this aquatic species. So it's like we can't necessarily know their names all the time. And not only can we not know their names all the time, they actually might be moving through, like, let's just say the energy of Mary Magdalene or another species that we might feel more drawn to at that time, so that we are more apt to receive the message, the more apt to be able to not only receive it, but understand it and have a context for it, given where we are in our level of consciousness. So it's like their message is not to attach to that, because what happens if you become attached to, this guide, or it's always coming through Mary Magdalene, when you're ready to grow and expand and you're always thinking that that's where it's coming from, you're going to be limiting yourself from where your consciousness can really go. With that being said, a lot of the beings, especially as they release their physical form, do not have a name attached to their identity. And nor do they have, if they are in a form or in an in-between form, one that we even have a context for. So often when I'm being shown images, all I can do is laugh at this point, because I'm like, I know I am seeing something. I am certainly seeing something, but I do not have the place to put in my understanding what it is. I'm like, what are you? What are you? And I see like patterns, and I see movement, and I see a being of a sort, but I'm like, I don't associate with any animal. I don't associate it with any like humanoid. But it's like the message is always like, if you can move that out of the way, then you are able to have the experience that you are meant to have. And so every time that happens, when I start getting in my head about trying to label and identify and where are you from and what are you, the message is always like, we're stopping here. If you're gonna loop on that, you can do that. But then the minute that I release that and come back to my heart, then the portal of communication opens again. So it's not about that kind of an attachment. And what they have also informed to me, and this happens in the sessions that I do, because it's not only the light language, it's also just a lot of the sessions that I do are talking with my clients and them expressing what they are going through in this physicality. Because as we know, we are going through so much at this time. And we are being called forth more than ever before to not only expand our consciousness, but expand what we're capable of. We, like the post that I made today, our visions and our desires are not random. They are codes being activated for a reason. And what can so often happen is that we get those codes activated and we feel that excitement or we feel that pull, but we don't know how to get from the place of where we are to where we know we are being called to be. And that is a very sacred journey and has been really the focus of my work over the past, I would say, year. So they have granted me so much understanding about that part of the human experience, never mind all of the different aspects of our human experience. So and what they have highlighted to me is, especially when working with clients that want to know, oh, well, where is this coming from and who is this from? It is so clear that often it depends on the person, it depends on where they are in their journey, and it depends on if that information is in service of their highest good. Because they're like, if we give you this information, they are going to leave this session and they are going to focus on us. They are going to focus on us. They are going to be repeating the story of what I told them about who they are, rather than focusing on their growth, expansion, ascension, etc. It's just what we do. It's just what we do. And also our preference is not to focus on ourselves. But this is one of the biggest things that they have been sharing, is that they are here to support us. They're like, we're not here for you to long to be where we are. It is all of an aspect of ourself anyways. The whole point is for them to be offering us these activations, these insights, these mind kind of altering and consciousness expanding experiences, not to be out there, but to bring it into this form. And that was a key piece for crystalline embodiment. How is it that we create this space so that we can receive this plethora of high vibrational energy and messages and truth that are just here and ready to drop in, and not just being left somewhere out there? It's just like we are beyond those times. Right now, the work is, how do I not only bring it into my body, but how do I bring cosmic consciousness? How do I bring my multidimensional awareness and beingness into my life, into my reality? That is the point. That is why they are here. Yes, they're here to remind us of our greater totality. Yes, they're here to remind us that we're not just from here. Yes, they're here to remind us of so many things, but it's not to be kept as like a intellectual story. It's meant to be brought into our life so that we can make the most out of this life. This is why we are here. This is why our soul chose to incarnate at this time. This is not random. This is not random at all. And we all have these higher dimensional aspects of self and guides that are here to support us. I have not had a single client, a single session where that wasn't the case. Sometimes our mind is like, oh, well, that's for someone else. Or I did that with light language, because light language, this funny thing was, when it came through, it first came through, so I had asked my partner, who knows a lot about higher dimensionals. I had heard about light language. He didn't actually know what light language was either. So I just dropped it, and I was like, oh, well, whatever. And then we come into contact with Jamie, and then it comes through him. It came through him. Few days out, before it came through me. And I was like, oh, well, I was like, how cool. I was like, I've done lives on that before, that, literally the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. And I'm like, and in my mind, and this is ego talking, it's like, that's not going to happen for me. But how cool that that's happening for him. There was no way that I could comprehend that would be in my reality. And I think that that's why, light language has different effects on people. One can be, wow, this is so activating, this is so beautiful. And for some, it's incredibly triggering. For a lot of reasons. It's weird looking sometimes. It's weird sounding. We don't understand it. We are taught to fear what we don't understand. And it's this part of us that, doesn't wants to believe that it's real. It breaks, it challenges so many of our belief systems that are in play. So I totally went through that experience. And then when it came through, the way that it came through first, like it was not at all what my mind would have anticipated. And it was like I was being trained of how to work with the energy. And most of it was how to not attach to the information that I was being given, because it sequentially builds. It was like, oh, I'm being shown a memory, and I would like immediately attach and be like, oh, maybe I'm channeling like this person's grandfather because I'm being shown this memory of that time. And then my mind would like spin on that and try to identify and label. And then it's like, it would stop. And once I was able to move through that need to identify, the next piece would come in, and the next piece would come in, and the next piece would come in, and the next piece would come in, next piece would come in. And then at the end, I'd be able to look at the totality and be like, oh my God, that's what I was being shown. That's what I was being shown. And it continues then to unpack. It's like these codes that drop in, and then over time, once they're in our field, they just expand and meet where we are as we continue to grow and evolve. So working with the sessions, like there's that channeling component, but then so much of it is me just being in straight channel with the higher self or guides of that person, and relaying exactly what it is, again, to navigate best that journey, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all kind of going together, and to like whatever aspect of one's life, if it's partner, if it's work, if it's connecting to intuition, connecting to guides, whatever it may be, there is a reason, there is a belief that is in the way of that being your reality. I know it from my own experience, and the only reason why I can share any of this is because of my own living proof and how I apply the same thing to my own life. We are source in the third dimension as form of data collection to better understand all parts of source. We are all source, disconnected and born with amnesia of source itself. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, born with an amnesia, but we're waking up, we're waking up, and we, like, our physical form, yeah, it is like, it is constantly like absorbing and assimilating information, but ultimately we have all of this already within. We have it all within. It is just, we can think of it as a DNA, whatever we want to think of it, as dormant energy that is being activated or awakened by the assistance of the higher dimensional realms and beings, if we so choose to experience it. But what I'm getting is that, especially those that are incarnating at this time, that are here for this mass awakening, which this is what it is, it's awakening to the greater truths of who you are, because the being and the expression of who we are right now is not the totality. But how many times, I know before I entered into this form of awareness, there were so many things in my life that I thought were kind of set in stone, or aspects of my beingness that were set in stone, or like just the way that I am, or whatever it may be. I did not realize that it was just kind of where my focus was. It was just like what genetics were being activated, but that is not like the totality or what is meant to like identify you in this human experience. There is so much more in this lifetime if we're able to let go of our attachments to like who we've been taught and told that we are, or even our own attachments to who we think we are, and to actually say, wow, over and over and over again, I'm willing to let that go so that these greater truths can be revealed and be a part of my experience. So I know that was kind of a mouthful. If there's anyone that has any questions about what I've shared, I welcome you to leave them in the comments. So we refer to them as codes. And these codes that are being activated within us are truly this beautiful gift and an empowering gift that says, this already exists within you. This, yes, it was activated seemingly maybe from the light language, maybe from a guide, maybe from a spiritual experience. But this is something that you have the ability to activate within, which is available to us in each and every moment. This, even in of itself, can create so much resistance, or I don't know if resistance is the right word, discomfort for our ego. And I know this from my own experience, because there's an instilled victim mentality, an instilled just like disempowerment that keeps us from realizing that we are the creator. And to say that we are the creator, and to say that we have the ability to infuse any moment, to infuse our own being with the codes and the energies of our choosing, that's a lot of responsibility. But it's there for us. And it's very potent to see, if we know that to be true, why we wouldn't do it. Why we would continue to subscribe to a system that is saying, I only get to receive that feeling if someone or something else gives it to me. But the great thing is that when when you experience a multidimensional channeling session, a light language transmission or activation, it grants you the freedom to step out of these bounds, these limits, these programs that were in here. And it grants you a far greater perspective of not only yourself, but of your reality and of the multiverse in general. And the beautiful thing is that then you are forever changed. And just naturally, you are embodying a new frequency that, if you so choose, can be channeled into everything that you do. Just gonna scroll up here. Exploring itself. I feel very new to the third dimensional experience. I'm autistic, and the earth is very overwhelming for me. I feel very connected to my guides. Yes, and the spirit of others. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And, and coming to know ourselves, especially with that, the heightened sensitivity, and to be living in that awareness of a general awareness that I am a spirit inhabiting a physical form, and it can feel very foreign. But I think that, like, someone like you, and I appreciate you sharing this, is actually such a beautiful guide for others, because as now those that have actually been more ingrained to feel comfort in the 3D, but don't really have a choice but other than to be a part of this awakening process, to have their sensitivities open up. And we've talked about this on previous lives, that we are all spirit incarnated in human form. We all have an intuition. We all have extrasensory abilities. We all have the ability to feel and experience invisible energies of others, and again, of the greater multiverse, and to know how to navigate the full spectrum, because again, that's not something that we're taught. And I can only imagine, crystals, that what that generates for you in this human experience, because I know that so many, and including myself, even though that wasn't my direct experience, because right now, luckily the awakening and this kind of information is spreading rapidly. There's also the norm, the system is very unrelatable, and it can leave us feeling often very times alone or unsure how do we navigate this territory, because we weren't given a guidebook, even though, which is just so wild to me, because here we are given this kind of a guide for how to do things physically, but even so, it's not it's one tiny sliver of our existence, and it's not even based in truth. I mean, the physical things that have happened, our history, are not real. But again, because it keeps us in a place of feeling safe or in control, it's much easier to focus on and believe in something that is physical or proven that can make us feel like we're in control of something as we navigate this. But truly, we are all spirited beings, and that is what we are awakening to. Are some of us newer than others? Some people have been here longer. Oh, thank you. Yes, in a community you can share it with. Yeah, I agree. The community piece is key, and ultimately that was my biggest inspiration for the Kamali Temple, because I have felt in my life very much alone. And honestly, and I'll go back to your question, Chrysalis, in a minute, felt very much alone, and that belief that I was unrelatable, or that I didn't know the right things to say, or that people weren't going to receive me, because that is what I felt in so many social situations and so many relationships, that was actually a block that I had to move through in terms of starting my own business, because I had the same stories that I was telling myself. And but I knew it's like that same thing that we were talking about prior. It's like where you are in this place, and then there's this place that you know that you're being called to be. I had every single synchronistic sign that I was meant to begin the journey of this work. And so there's so many layers that I had to unpack to get myself to this point. But as I've talked so many times, that feeling frequency, or that vision that was planted in my consciousness, that was my guiding force. That was the thing that kept me going through the depths until getting to this place, and it still never ends. But to be able to actually show up and do this, oh my God. I mean, but it has served as like, oh wow, okay, well if this has been my experience, I knew on so many levels that that it's not isolated, even though that's not what was being reflected to me in my reality. I wasn't having anyone being able to reflect back to me what I was experiencing. However, I knew by showing up and moving through all of those beliefs, and just by doing it, here is that beautiful confirmation, and then it just keeps going. And and I think even the community piece is so big, but even furthermore, being able, and like this is my dedicated mission, to be able to put these multidimensional concepts into a language that not only is like digestible but gives us a context for what we're experiencing. And then now this next step that just keeps coming through is giving it a place to land, so that we can enjoy this physical reality even more. Because I know I did not enjoy this physical reality. I didn't. And through the awareness that I can channel that energy in, has changed my life. Okay. So newer than others. So are you meaning like newer in terms of incarnating on planet Earth? Because I think like that kind of a question to me feels a little like linear, because there are aspects of our soul that are in existence on like in other dimensional realities, as we were talking about in the beginning. And like this isn't the only Earth, and other Earths have kind of like different rules that they're abiding by. So it's not that we're always incarnating just on Earth either. And that just because we incarnated on Earth once doesn't mean that we are going to incarnate on Earth again. And then if we go, outside the bounds of time and space, some would say that it's all actually happening at once anyways. So yeah, some say like new soul, old soul. Some of me, I see that, because I definitely, it's like, it like a old soul when you see one, when you experience one. But I think that that's also just kind of like the multitude of other like lives that they have gone through, where they are on their ascension journey. And sometimes, even though, like, let's just say a Pleiadian race might be in the future and of a much higher intelligence than us, and actually, like, in our world, like, older than us, gone through many more lifetimes than us, they are, you know, like many star seeds that are incarnating. Many of these higher dimensionals are incarnating in human form and actually appear to us as though they are young souls because their energy is so pure, but that doesn't mean that they're a young soul at all. So let me know if that answers that question. Totally understand. I can so relate. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Yes, I love that. Oh, that makes me so happy. Even my loved ones who will have conversations with me about this seem like they are just entertaining the conversation, not really listening. Yeah, and this is why, I mean, look, I go through this all the time. And because it's not the job of, like, our family, like, so look, especially our parents, we talked about this, I think, a few lives ago. Like, keep in mind that their level of consciousness is not at the level of consciousness that ours is. They do not have the capacity to actually fully understand or relate, even though our inner child is like, but I want to be seen, and I want to be heard, and I want to be understood, and I want to be received, and I want someone to relate to, and I, you know, all the things. But this is part of, like, the catalyst for our greater growth. And just because we're having a conversation with someone who doesn't fully understand or know how to receive, you are still activating some sort of code within them. But it is never our job to, like, even though we have a higher awareness, like, I've had to learn this lesson so many times, because when I didn't realize that I was seeing people's energy to the degree that I was, I mean, I would hang out with, like, ex-boyfriends and their family, and I'd be, like, reading their entire family and picking up on all this stuff, and then I'd be like, but they don't even see that, like, what they're doing, what they're putting in their body is affecting them, and it's going to affect them in this way, and it's da-da-da, and it's like, Kema, chill, like, this is not your job in this dynamic, because that's not something that they're able to receive, and they're on their own life journey. And so it's not ever about, like, us imposing what we know. It is about in knowing that it is true for us and embodying it, and then letting that express through us, and then eventually that catches on. You know, I've had friends, like, because look, I've been, even before I was doing this for work, this was, you know, this was my realm. This was my fun space, and would get into so many discussions, and ones that would be, like, coming from these. So the last live came to a sudden end. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. Maybe the the topic was getting too out there for Instagram to handle. So I just wanted to just kind of tie things up from that last conversation so that we can really end in a nice, clean, fluid place. So we were talking about just the energy of being received. Hi, Kirsten. So I just did a whole live just so that you're in the know, and for some reason the live ended. So I'm just kind of tying up the conversation around feeling received when you are interacting with friends or family or whoever it may be that isn't at a place to kind of receive where you are at your level of consciousness, awareness, and growth. And, you know, really that knowing that whether it's spirituality, whether it's multidimensionality, whether it's love, whether it's peace, whatever the frequency is that we come to know, it's first and foremost about our relationship to ourselves, and knowing that regardless of how something is going to be received, most importantly, it's about remaining in integrity with our truth. Because so often, and, you know, I gave the example of, you know, someone being at a point in their journey where they're not in a loving relationship with themselves, yet we can so desperately want someone to feel or receive the love that we have for them. but they're not able to actually receive it or even reflect it back. And what can so happen to our ego, to our human self, is that we feel invalidated, or we don't feel seen or heard, or all of the things, because someone else that we so want to hold that space for us. And, quite often it comes within our family dynamic, within our relationship dynamics, but knowing that even though it feels so personal, it's not personal, because it is only a reflection of where they are. And, Kirsten, we talked about this last week in Crystalline Embodiment, where, if we look at our parents, when we look at their parents, for the most part, the level of consciousness is not where ours is. Each generation, consciousness is expanding, and this is why relationship, to ourselves and to our own self-care is so important, and and valuing our journey. And as we continue to open and have our experiences and interface with our reality from a spiritual or multidimensional perspective, it is not here to create more separation between us and humanity, us and the planet, us and the nature of reality. All of the, this multidimensional awareness that is available to us, multidimensional guidance and support that is available to us, is not to bring us into a place of greater separation, to wish that we were somewhere else. It is, we signed up to be here, incarnated in human form for a reason, on planet Earth for a reason, and so that we can be that channel, that vessel, that vehicle for this high vibrational energy, for these universal truths, to be able to anchor into planet Earth. And that is not always the most comfortable experience, especially when we don't know that that's what's going on, but also because that human self wants to feel seen, heard, and appreciated, and wants to be existing in an environment of love and support and acceptance. But again, this is what we are generating then, first and foremost, for ourselves, and leading by example for others to do the same. So I definitely recommend, if you're here on part 2, to tune into part 1. I go full into multidimensional channeling and about my own multidimensional channeling experience and journey, and this really kind of core and integral part of how, really it's how I receive all of my information, all of the courses, all of the lives that I share are not coming from like an intellectualization of, something I learned in a training somewhere. It is my open and receptive vessel, and allowing for my guides to move through the communication of my higher self through to me, to let me know what is of, the best service to all of you. So if you are curious, what is multidimensional channeling? Check out part 1. And if you're ready to experience that for yourself, you can absolutely book a session. The link to booking all my sessions is in the bio. And really, it is just something to be experienced. Certainly not necessarily something for our mind to understand prior. But I know that primarily through the women that I work with, that we are all being activated. We are being activated right now for a reason. We are getting these hits of greater desire, of higher vision, more expansive points of view. We are waking up to the fact that we are unlimited beings living in multiverse of unlimited potential, and these codes are activating. And now the question is, what do I do with that? So a lot of the one-on-one work that I do is that, what do I do with that? How do I navigate from the place that I am to this place that I'm being called to be? Because that is a very real and sacred journey, and so often we can stay right where we are because we don't have that map, or we're scared, or we have beliefs that are holding us in our tracks. So I would love to welcome you into that space if it is calling to you. If you have questions, please send me a DM. I would love to unpack anything that is kind of coming through for you right now. And I welcome you in, and I thank you all for tuning in. I just wanted to end the last live that I had started because for some reason the live came to a sudden end. So here's that last little piece for you. And oh, lovey, thank you so much. I bet that you're glowing as well, reflecting that right back at you. So thank you all for being here. And yeah, go check out part 1. It is now up on IGTV. Sending you so much love.